At the party, you were teasing my husband, not expecting it to lead to anything serious. It was one of those evenings filled with laughter and wine where jokes flowed freely. However, when David suddenly announced that it was all over, the abrupt silence cut through me like a knife. Perhaps my reaction may seem dramatic, but let me provide some context. My name is Laura, and I have been married to David for 7 years. He is not the typical rom-com husband. He is reserved and introspective, in stark contrast to my talkative, impulsive nature. That night, we were at Clara and Miguel's house, surrounded by our usual group of friends in what appeared to be a harmless gathering. These gatherings often started casually, with everyone relaxed and dressed down, only for the conversation to take unexpected turns. Clara and Miguel, the gracious hosts, ensured everyone's glasses remained full. Hugo was there too, his infectious laughter. Alright, imagine how wild it was. My own level of craziness, mixed with humor and Paula's peculiar talent of finding every joke uproariously funny. And then there were the two of us. David, sporting his classic blue shirt. Yeah, the one he always sports. And me, feeling a tad sharper than usual thanks to a couple of drinks. The evening kicked off nicely, music rubbed, the usual chit-chat about folks we barely even knew. Then someone, can't quite recall who, suggested a game. Spill something quirky or amusing about the rest of the gang, and that's when things took a turn. David was the primary target of the banter. It commenced innocently enough, like how he unfailingly orders the same dish at every joint. What's the deal, David? Scared to venture beyond your comfort zone? Miguel chuckled, and Hugo naturally chimed in with a quip of his own. I reckon it's because last time he tried something new, he ended up asking for bread to wash away the taste. Cute laughter from everyone, myself included. Though I noticed David said nah, I didn't dwell on it too much. But then Clara shot at Lance. I observed him and suddenly blurted out one of her lines, always with those shirts, huh? If one day you show up in something different, I promise I'll throw you a parade in your honor. In hindsight, I should have realized that something was amiss at that moment, but I didn't. Instead, I played along saying, I know. How could you do that, Laura? It all seemed so innocent at the time. Or perhaps we could create a statue for you, David, the man who wore something different. David smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. It felt forced, as if he was trying to blend in with the jovial atmosphere. Despite everyone else laughing, there was a tension in the air when he placed his glass back on the table and met my gaze. It sent a shiver down my spine. I believe everyone has experienced that sensation at some point, being in a seemingly normal situation, laughing and enjoying yourself, only to suddenly sense a shift in the air. You can't quite pinpoint what has changed, but you know something is off. That was precisely what occurred that night. After the light-hearted banter, David excused himself, saying, I'm going to get some. Air, he said it so calmly that if I didn't know him, I would have thought he really needed a breather. But I know him. When David gets that quiet, something isn't right. Is he okay? Clara asked, as if nothing was wrong. Yeah, sure, I said with a smile. You know how he is. He gets a bit overwhelmed and needs his space. I sounded so convincing, I almost believed my own lie. I waited a few minutes before following him to the patio. I didn't want it to seem like I was chasing him, but I also didn't want to ignore that gut feeling I had. I found him out there, leaning against the railing, looking at the city lights as if he were solving some great mystery. Everything okay? I asked, trying to sound casual. David took a while to answer, long enough for that knot in my stomach to tighten even more. Finally, he glanced at me and said, You know this isn't funny to me, right? Boom. Just like that, no beating around the bush. I didn't know what to say because, and this hurts to admit, I knew exactly what he was talking about. However, I wasn't willing to give in so easily and decided to try and lighten the mood. David, they were just jokes. We were all playing around. You know we don't mean it seriously, right? Neither of us do. Ouch. His words hit me harder than I had anticipated. Why? Because he was correct. I had indeed laughed and taken part in the banter more than most. You're overreacting, I blurted out, my defensive instincts kicking in. It was just harmless banter. I couldn't understand why he was making such a big deal out of it. David let out a short, bitter laugh. It was evident that my words had only made him more upset. Let it go, Laura, he said, shaking his head. There's no point in discussing it now. Let's just go before the others realize something's up. I wanted to say something to salvage the situation, but I was rendered speechless. David walked back inside as if nothing had happened. leaving me alone on the patio. The cold breeze brushed against my face, and a hollow feeling began to grow in my chest. Something was definitely amiss, was noticeably different. I tried to downplay it, pretending it wasn't a significant occurrence. However, when David re-entered the living room, his demeanor had shifted. It was evident right away to me. The way he carried himself, the way he held his glass, all sent a sense of unease through me. It wasn't that he was upset or angry, it was something more chilling. It seemed as though he had already made up his mind, with no possibility of turning back. The rest of the group continued with their laughter and chatter, seemingly oblivious to the shift in the atmosphere. Hugo was in the middle of sharing a light-hearted story, Paula laughing uproariously, likely fueled by the wine. At first, no one noticed David's return until he took action. Setting his glass down on the table with a muted thud that caught everyone's attention, calmly spoke up. "Can we talk for a moment?" Although his voice was composed, there was an undertone that completely altered the mood. Hugo attempted to diffuse the tension with a joke. "What's on your mind, old man?" "Another round of jokes because I've got some fresh ones ready in this time. You're really going to like them." But David didn't laugh. "This isn't going to be a joke," he said, looking at everyone. "Just need to say something. Now, let me explain something about David. He's not the type of person who seeks the spotlight. In fact, if he can avoid it, he will. That's why when I saw him standing there in front of everyone, I knew something big was coming. I know tonight has been fun for you and that the jokes were just that, jokes. But for me, it wasn't. And I'm tired of pretending it was." The silence that followed was awkward. Even Paula, who always had something to say, seemed not to know how to react. "David, that wasn't our intention," Nicole began, but David interrupted him, raising a hand. "I don't want excuses or explanations. This isn't about you. This is about me. I'm tired. Tired of being the butt of every joke. Of always being the predictable guy, the one who doesn't change. The one who's easy to attack because he never says anything. And tonight was the last straw." I looked at him hoping. He refused to meet my eyes, opting to avoid looking at me altogether, causing the most profound hurt. Then, with great weight, he delivered the crushing declaration, "It's all over, forever." The statement hung in the air like a leaden brick. Silence enveloped the room as no words seemed fitting in response to such finality. Even the background music appeared to halt abruptly. Paula, clearly uneasy, questioned, "What do you mean by that, David?" A sigh escaped him, and for a fleeting moment, it seemed he might soften his stance. However, he remained resolute, stating, "I no longer wish to be a part of this, the jests, the dynamics, or even this relationship." Though not explicitly stated, the implication was starkly evident to all. Struggling to find my voice, I implored David, "Please." Yet his firm reply shut down any hope. "No, Laura, not anymore." With that final blow, he turned and exited the room, leaving behind a suffocating silence that seemed to weigh heavily upon me. Moments passed with no one daring to break the oppressive quiet. "Eventually, Paula." I attempted to diffuse the tension by offering more wine, but even that failed to ease the atmosphere. As I gazed at the door through which David had stormed out, a single question echoed in my mind. What had just transpired? His abrupt departure seemed to suck the air out of the room, leaving us all at a loss for words. Even Hugo, usually quick with a quip, fell silent. "Well, that was awkward." Paula's shaky voice finally broke the stillness. Hugo turned to me, expecting answers. Standing in the midst of the bewildered group, I struggled to make sense of the situation. Should I confess my confusion over David's outburst and the meaning behind his departure? "I'll go talk to him," I found myself saying, although I had no clue what I would say. Before I could continue, Laura interjected, "I don't think now is the right time." Paula declared the time in a condescending manner, claiming expertise in relationships. I couldn't continue pretending everything was normal, so I stepped outside. Upon reaching the patio, I noticed he had already left, and the chill in the air indicated a sudden drop in temperature. I scanned the area, hoping to find him by the railing, but he was nowhere to be seen. Returning to the living room, I mentioned he wasn't outside, feeling compelled to update the others. Clara, sounding more worried than curious, asked if he was serious. I reassured them that he indeed seemed serious, based on his expression. Deciding to end the evening, I expressed my gratitude before stating my intention to search for David. Miguel acknowledged my decision, yet the atmosphere remained uneasy. Hugo attempted to comfort me, suggesting that he was likely upset and would return. As I hesitated to finish my sentence, a sense of uncertainty lingered in the air. He failed to return. Upon arriving home, he was nowhere to be found. His car was absent from the garage, and my attempts to reach him by phone went unanswered. I settled on the sofa, fixating on the phone with a hope to will it into ringing. The silence weighed heavily, causing a deep ache within me. After what felt like an eternity, I noticed a note on the kitchen table, penned in his meticulous handwriting. Though brief, its contents were enough to dampen my spirits. David conveyed his need for space to reflect, expressing his weariness of living a facade to please others, including myself. Uncertainty clouded my mind as I repeatedly read his words. The realization that a rift had formed between us settled in, casting doubt on the possibility of reverting to our previous selves. Remaining rooted in the kitchen, I gazed at the note, longing for its message to transform. Though it remained resolute in its clarity and pain, it required time. Perhaps he needed more than just time. Maybe he needed distance from me. The following morning, I awoke with a naive and almost childlike sense of hope. I entertained the thought that he might have returned while I slept, sitting on the couch with his beloved gray blanket, engrossed in an action movie we had already watched countless times. However, the couch lay vacant, his car still absent. The note remained where I left it on the table, serving as a painful reminder of my loss. Days passed in solitude, the deafening silence of the house weighing heavily upon me. At times, I found myself holding my breath, afraid that any sound would shatter the fragile stillness. His belongings, the cherished mug, toothbrush, and the blue shirt he wore that fateful night, all seemed to echo the same message back at me. He is no longer here. Alone, I had ample time to reflect. I analyzed every word exchanged that night, every joke I uttered as if it meant nothing. I dwelled on the instances where I laughed. Instead of being with him, it dawned on me at that moment something that stung more than anything else. I realized I had not truly listened to David in a long while. I had always assumed he was doing fine because David never complained nor raised his voice. However, I now grasped that his silence didn't signify he was okay. Rather, it signified he was internalizing his struggles. On the third day, I reached out to him via a message, hesitant to call once more as I feared pushing him further away. David, I apologize. I know this may not change anything, but I must say it. I was mistaken. I have caused you pain. And the most regrettable part is that I was oblivious to it. If you ever decide you're ready to talk, I'll be here. As I anxiously watched my phone for what seemed like an eternity, yearning for it to ring and bring relief, finally, it vibrated. His response wasn't what I had anticipated. Thank you for your words, but I need more time. Although it wasn't the answer I had hoped for, it was something. Although I felt a sense of relief knowing he hadn't completely shut me out, I also understood that now was not the moment to push. That night, I found myself sitting alone on our bed, contemplating. Glancing around the room, I noticed that everything appeared familiar, yet deep down I knew that things had changed. This space was no longer a mere emptiness. It was a manifestation of the disconnect that had been allowed to grow unchecked. David's words rang true. He had grown weary, not just of the jests, but of something more profound. He had become a mere silhouette in his own existence. It dawned on me that I had trespassed upon something sacred to him, his dignity. That realization cut the deepest. At times in our love for someone, we can unintentionally cause them pain. We fall into the illusion of being invulnerable, believing that our words, spoken with affection, don't carry much weight. That night, it became clear that even seemingly harmless jests can turn into sharp blades if repeated too often. I am uncertain of what the future holds for David and Lee. I am unsure if there is a way to salvage what once was. What I do know is that if given the opportunity, I will not be the same person. Love transcends mere affection. It encompasses truly seeing, hearing, and validating the other person. It involves ensuring that even in the darkest moments, that individual understands that they are valued and respected. Remember, your safety is important. I made mistakes that I am now facing the consequences for. So if you're watching this and thinking of someone special in your life, please take a moment. Pay attention to them, hear them out, and check if they are okay. That unforgettable night taught me that even the most patient individuals have their limits. By the time they speak up, it might be too late to repair the damage. That was my story, and I hope it encouraged some reflection or kept you interested until the end. If you enjoyed this tale and want more like it, consider subscribing. Here, you'll encounter stories that evoke thoughts, emotions, and perhaps spark new learnings. If this narrative resonated with you, or if you'd like to share your own experience, please leave a comment below. We'd appreciate hearing your thoughts. And if you found this story compelling, a simple like goes a long way in supporting us. Thank you. Thank you for your continued support and sharing more stories with you. See you in the next one.